Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel Best IT Solution to all of you again. And today in this video tutorial, we'll discuss some important Java interview question and answer series for fresher and experienced both. Okay, so in previous tutorial, we have already discussed the part 1 and part 2 of this question and answer series, but in this video we'll discuss the part 3 of this Java interview question and answer series. So in part 1 we have discussed around 30 questions, and in part 2 also we have discussed around 30 questions, and in this part 3 also we will discuss around 30 questions with its answer. Okay, so these are the questions which is mostly frequently asking in the Java interview. Okay, so the freshers and experienced both can follow this tutorial, but mostly these questions are asked to the experienced, around 2 to 3 years experienced people, so only 2 to 3 or 5 any experience. Okay, so let's start. So our first question is, what is acid properties in DBMS? Okay, so what are the acid properties that are available in database management systems? Okay, so acid properties means, acid means A for atomicity, C for consistency, I for isolation, and D for durability. Okay, so atomicity means the entire transaction takes place at once or does not happen at all. Okay, so the atomicity property says that the entire transaction takes place at once. The whole transaction will be take place at one, or otherwise it will does not happen at all. Otherwise the transaction will not happen at all. Okay, that means the transaction will transaction will takes place. Otherwise, there is no transaction will happen. And the consistency property says that the database must be consistent before and after transaction. Okay, so consistent means the data should be consistent. So before the transaction and after the transaction, the data should be consistent. And the isolation means multiple transactions occur independently without interface. Okay, so the multiple transactions are occur independently. So each transactions can be occurs independently without the interface of the another transactions. Sorry. And the durability, so durability means the changes of successful transaction occur even if the system failure occurs. So durability means the changes of successful transaction, the transaction which is already successful, that transaction should be occurred even if the system failure occurs. Okay, when the system again restored, that transaction should be recorded or saved in the database. Okay. So our second question is, what is the use of concurrent hashmap? Okay, so this is also very tricky question. Concurrent hashmap. So Java concurrent hashmap class is a part of the concurrency collection class. Okay, so this concurrent hashmap, it is a class which is the part of the concurrency collection classes. So it is a hashtable implementation. This concurrent hashmap is the hashtable implementation which supports concurrent retrieval and updates. So this concurrent hashmap supports concurrent retrieval and updates. Concurrent means parallelly we can retrieve data and we can update the data also. So it is used in a multi-threading environment to avoid concurrent modification exception. Okay, so to avoid the concurrent modification exception, this concurrent hashmap is used in the multi-threading environment. So concurrent hashmap is a thread shape implementation of the map interface. Okay, so in the map interface, the concurrent hashmap is the thread shape implementations of the map interface, which means multiple threads can access in it simultaneously. Okay, that means multiple threads can access simultaneously in concurrent hashmap. So this is the advantage of the concurrent hashmap. So our next question is, what is Elasticsearch and what are the operation we can do in Elasticsearch? Okay, so Elasticsearch, generally this is a, we can say it is a NoSQL database. So Elasticsearch is a NoSQL database. So like document database we can also say. So it is a NoSQL database. That means it stores data in unstructured way and you cannot use SQL to query it. Okay, so this Elasticsearch is a NoSQL database. It stores data in an unstructured way and we cannot use the SQL query here. Okay, we cannot use SQL query to fetch a particular data like RDBMS. So initially Initially released Elasticsearch in 2010, it's a modern search and analytics engine which is based on Apache Lucena. It's built with Java. Okay, so this is a modern search and analytic engine which is based on the Apache Lucena, and it's built with Java. So basic operations we can do here, like creating an index, deleting an index, opening and closing an index, putting a mapping in an index, and getting a mapping in an index. So these are the basic operations. Other operations we can do. These are the basic operations we can do in Elasticsearch. How to upload? So our next question is how to upload large file through API gateway. Okay, so this question is mostly related to the microservices API gateway. So how we can upload the large file through API gateway? Okay, so API gateway generally supports a file less than 10 MB. Okay, the API gateway only support file which is less than 10 MB. So in order to securely upload files which is greater than 10 MB, that is a large file, a more sophisticated solution involving lambda which is running in the backend to generate pre-signed can be used. Okay, so to securely upload a file, a large file which is greater than 10 MB, a more sophisticated solution is there, that is called lambda, AWS lambda. So this lambda running in the backend to generate pre-signed can be used. So pre-signed URL generated by AWS lambda. Okay, so this lambda feature is the AWS feature. So this pre-signed URL generated by the AWS lambda can then be used to upload large files to S3. Okay, S3 means simple storage service. We can by using this AWS lambda service, we can upload this large file to the S3. So how to combine multiple git commit to a single commit? Okay, so suppose there are a number of commit statements there, but we want to merge it and we want to make it a single commit. How we can do it? Okay, so steps to merging a multiple commits are there. First is running git rebase in introduction mode. Okay, so we need to run the command git rebase in introduction mode. Then typing squash, choosing between commit message, so you need to type the squash. Then pushing the changes, we need to pushing the changes, then squashing. Okay, so in this way we can merge the multiple commit to a single commit. So next question is related to database, which is what is normalization? Okay, so normalization is the process of organizing the data in database. Okay, so normalization generally it is the process of organizing data in database. It is used to minimize the redundancy from a relation or a set of relations. Okay, so generally this normalization is used to minimize the redundancy from the relation or a set of relations. So to minimize the redundancy, that is data redundancy, this is actually drawback. So to minimize redundancy from the database or from the table, we can use this normalization. Okay, so it is also used to eliminate undesirable characteristics like insertion, updation, deletion, anomalies. Okay, so this normalization also used to eliminate undesirable characteristics like insertion, updation, and deletion anomalies. Okay, and normalization divides the larger table into smaller and links them using relationship. Okay, so this is also an important feature. Normalization, it is divides the larger table into a smaller table. It is divides the larger table into a smaller table and links them using the relationship. Okay, using the primary key for relationship, it is link the tables. So normalization helps to create a good database structure. So normalization helps to create a good database structure by eliminating redundancy and making data consistency and reliability. Okay, so it helps to create a good database structure by eliminating the redundancy and making the data more consistent and reliability. So what are the types of normalization? Okay, so normalization, there are 5 types of normalization there. We can say 1NF, 2NF, 3NF, 4NF and 5NF. So what is 1NF? So 1NF, like a relation is 1NF if it contains an atomic value. Okay, if it contains an atomic value, we can say that this is a 1NF, first normal form. Okay, 1NF means this is the first normal form. And a relation, which is second normal form, a relation is in second normal form if it is in first normal form and all non-key attributes are fully functional dependent on the primary key. Okay, so it is the second NF, it should be follow the conditions of the first normal form, and with that all non-key attributes are fully functional dependent on the primary key. And third normal form means a relation will be third normal form if it is in second NF, that is if it is satisfying the condition of second normal form and no transition dependency exists. Okay, so no transition dependency exists, also called Boyce-Coates normal form. Okay, so this third normal form we can also call that Boyce-Coates normal form, and it should be follow the second NF conditions, and additionally no transition dependency should be exist there. Okay, between the relation. And fourth normal form is a relation will be in fourth normal form if it is in third normal form and has no multi-value dependency. Okay, so if it is there satisfied the terms and condition of third normal form with additionally it has no multi-value dependency. Okay, so it has no multi-value dependency. And 5NF, if a relation is in 5NF, if it is in 4NF and does not contain any join dependency, joining should be lossless. Okay, so in case of fifth normal form, it should satisfy all the properties of fourth normal form, that is first normal form, second normal form, third normal form, and fourth normal form. Plus, additionally, it does not contain any join dependency. Joining should be lossless. Okay. So these are the 5 type of normalization or normal form we can say. Our next question is, what is array store exception in Java? Okay, so array store exception also is a very exception which we can face frequently. An array store exception is a runtime exception in Java that occurs when an attempt is made to store the incorrect type of object into an array of objects. Okay, so when we are trying to store a object, an incorrect type of object to a array, at that time we can face that array store exception. Suppose this array is in integer type, but we are trying to store there in long variable or string data in the integer data type array, then at that time we can face this array store exception because it can unable to store, because array is store only similar type of data only. For example, if an integer object is attempted to be stored in a string array, okay, so if an integer object is attempted to be stored in a string array, at that time java.lang.array store exception, java.lang.integer is thrown. Okay, so this type of exception we can found at that time. So next question is, what is lock interface in Java? Okay, so lock interface. So lock interface is similar to synchronized block, which is used for thread synchronization mechanism. Okay, so the lock interface is similar to the synchronized block, which is used for thread synchronization mechanism. So for generally for thread synchronization mechanism, this lock interface we can use. So it is more flexible and provides more options in comparison to the synchronized block. Okay, so this lock interface provides more flexible and provides more options than in comparison to the synchronized block. Lock interface is available in the java.util.concurrent.lock package. Okay, this lock interface available in the java.util.concurrent.lock package. Okay, in this lock package we can found this lock interface. The lock interface ensures the sequence in which the waiting thread will be given access. Okay, the lock interface ensures that the sequence in which the waiting thread will be given access, whereas synchronized block does not handle it. Okay, so whereas the synchronized block does not handle it. So it also provides the options of timeout when the lock is not granted, but synchronized have not such options. Okay, so it provides the options of timeout when the lock is not granted. Okay, so it provides the options of timeout when the lock is not granted, but synchronized have not such options. Okay, so this lock interface also it is additional options like to provide the timeout option, but the synchronized block has not such options. Methods of lock interfaces are, so there are lock and unlock, and another one is you can say try lock, lock interruptively. Okay, so these are the lock, unlock, try lock, lock interruptively. These are the methods of lock interfaces. Okay. What is intern method in Java? Okay, so what is the use of intern method in Java? So the Java string class intern method returns the intern string. Okay, so the intern method returns the intern string. It returns the canonical representation of string object. Okay, so the intern method returns the canonical representation of the string object. So by an example we can describe it properly. So it checks if a string with the same content is already in the string pool. If it exists, it returns the reference to the string object. So it checks if a string with the same content, if a string with the same content is already present in the string pool. If it exists, it returns the reference to that string object. For example, suppose string str equal to new string tarun dot intern. We have mentioned dot intern, and another variable we have initialized string str1 equal to string tarun. Okay, so we have initialized this str and str1, these two string variable, the same value, that is tarun. But when we are comparing these two, system.out.print str equal to str1, these two objects, it will print true. But if we will not mention this intern methods here, it will returns the false. Okay, so these are the use of the intern method. So next question is, what is transaction propagation and its type? Okay, so transaction propagation defines our business logics transaction boundary. Okay, so the transaction propagation defines our business logics transaction boundary. Spring manages to start and pause a transaction according to our propagation setting. So Spring manages the start and pause of transaction according to our propagation settings. So Spring calls transaction manager, transaction manager get transaction to get or create transaction according to the propagation. So whatever the propagation value we have passed, according to that Spring create the transaction or get the transaction. So different types of propagations are, there are different type of propagations. So different type of propagations are, we can say required propagation. These are the parameters: support propagations, mandatory propagation, never propagations, not supported propagation, requires new propagation, nested propagation. Okay, so these are the propagation parameters or value we can pass. How we will pass in the transaction? Suppose, for example, at the rate transactional and propagation equal to propagation dot required. Okay, so we are passing the required propagation settings here. And note, one note is there, required is the default propagation. Okay, so if we are not mentioned any type of propagation in transactional, then default propagation is the required. Okay, required is the default propagation. What is transaction isolation and its type? Okay, so like transaction propagation, there is also another concept is transaction isolation. So what is transaction isolation and its type of transaction isolation? So isolation is one of the common acid properties. Okay, so in isolation, in this video, in first question you have seen the acid properties: atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. So this isolation is the one of the most common properties of that acid properties. So isolation describes how changes applied by concurrent transactions are visible to each other. Okay, so this isolation describes how changes applied by concurrent transactions are visible to each other. So each isolation level presents things like, so each isolation level, so there are different levels of isolation. So each isolation level presents things like dirty read, non-repeatable read, and phantom read. Okay, so these are the isolation level, we can say: dirty read, non-repeatable read, and phantom read. And we can say the isolation level of a transaction by transaction colon isolation. It has this 5 enumeration type. Okay, so this isolation has the 5 enumeration type like the propagation also. So this default, read uncommitted, read committed, repeatable read, serializable. Okay, so these are the five enumerations constants in isolation. So how we are mention this, that at the transactional isolation equal to isolation dot read committed or isolation dot read uncommitted, we can mention in this way. And the default isolation is the isolation level is default. Okay, so default is the default isolation level. What is GraphQL? So GraphQL, we can say GraphQL is an open source data query and manipulation language. Okay, so this GraphQL is an open source data query and manipulation language for APIs and a query runtime engine. Okay, so for APIs and query runtime engine, GraphQL is an open source data query and manipulation language. GraphQL enables declarative data fetching, where a client can specify exactly what data it needs from an API. Okay, so this GraphQL enables declarative data fetching. So the GraphQL enables the declarative data fetching, where a client can specify exactly what data it needs from an API. So next question is, what is camel? Okay, so the camel, this Apache camel, this camel is the Apache tool. So the Apache camel is an open source integration framework. So the Apache camel is an open source integration framework that empowers you to quickly and easily integrate various system consuming or producing data. Okay, so by using this Apache camel, we can easily or quickly integrate various systems consuming or producing the data. Camel is a newer integration patterns for microservice. So the camel is a, we can say the camel is a newer integration patterns for microservice architecture to help you solve your integration problems. Okay, so it is help you to solve your integration problem by applying best practices. Camel can also directly work with any kind of transport or messaging models. So this camel, this Apache camel also compatible with the any type of messaging or transport modules such as HTTP, Kafka, Apache Kafka also use with the camel, JMA Java messaging service or RabbitMQ. Okay, so this the tools also you can easily integrate directly use with the camel. Next question is, how can we secure our DB password or any app password? So generally DB password, app password we are storing in our project configuration file, but there is a chances of hacking or like theft, vulnerability attack to password. So in this case, we can store our DB username or password in Spring Cloud Vault instead of application configuration file. Okay, so to secure a database password, we can store our DB username or password in Spring Cloud Vault. Okay, so we can store in Spring Cloud Vault instead of storing in the application configuration file. So Spring Config Server is also a good choice. So there is a Spring Config Server. So this is also a good choice. It allows you to store encrypted secrets in your config repository. So this Spring Config Server allows you to store the encrypted passwords in your config repository. Your credentials are protected from threat. So here, if we will store in this way, our credentials are protected from the threat. We need to add Spring Cloud Vault starter config dependency. Okay, to use this Spring Cloud config server, we need to add the Spring Cloud Vault starter config dependency. This is the dependency we need to add to get this, to avail these features. What is memory leak in Java? What are the tools used and symptoms? Okay. A memory leak is a situation where there are objects present in the heap that are no longer used. Okay, so the memory leak is a situation, we can say, where there are objects present in the heap that are no longer used. So their objects are present in the heap, but that objects are no more used. But the garbage collector are also unable to remove them from the memory. Okay, so the garbage collector, Java garbage collector is also unable to remove them from the memory, and therefore they are unnecessarily maintained. Okay, so as memory leak is the situation, some objects are present in the heap which are not used, but Java garbage collection mechanism also cannot remove or remove that object from the memory. So in this situation, these memories are unnecessarily maintained. So this is called memory leak. So a memory leak is bad because it blocks memory resource and degrades system performance over time. So the memory leak concept is very bad because it blocks the memory unnecessarily. It blocks the memory resource and degrades the system performance over time. That means it will be slow down the system performance. And types and cause of memory leaks are, we can say, what are the types or cause of memory leaks. So through static fields, when we are declaring a static fields, the static fields or static values or objects are also stored in the memory. Some unclosed resources, which resources are not closed, some unclosed resources, improper equals and hash code implementation, improper equals and hash code implementation. So these are the reason of memory leak. Okay. And how to detect memory leak in Java? So using memory profilers, so there are some mechanisms by which we can detect the memory leak. They are using memory profilers. Another is verbose garbage collection. Okay, using the verbose garbage collection, using the heap dumps. Okay, so by using these techniques, we can detect the memory leak. So next question is, what is SQL injection, types, and how to prevent it? Okay, so what is SQL injection? What is SQL injection? What are the types of SQL injection and how to prevent it? Okay. So SQL injection is a code-based vulnerability that allows an attacker to read and access sensitive data from database. Okay. So the SQL injection is a code-based vulnerability that allows an attacker to read and access sensitive data from the database. To read and access sensitive data from the database. So in simple word, SQL injection means in simple word, SQL injection means injecting or inserting SQL code in a query via user inputted data. Okay, so in simple word, SQL injection means injecting or inserting SQL code in a query. Injecting or inserting the SQL code in a query via user input. When the user is giving some data as input, so some codes are injected with that user data. Okay, so by which the attacker can hack the use any data from database. So types of SQL injections. Okay, so there are 4 types of SQL injection, we can say. Okay, so boolean based, union based, time based, and error based. Okay, so these are the types of SQL injection: boolean based, union based, time based, and error based. And for example, how SQL injections are injected. Suppose there is a query, select star from user table where user ID equal to 2 or 1 equal to 1. Okay, so in this case, always this query will be execute because select star from user table, select star from user table where user ID equal to 2. So if this question will not satisfy, then 1 equal to 1, always this will be true and all the data will be fetched from the table. So prevention of SQL injection, how we can prevent the SQL injection? Okay, so we should use prepared statement instead of the statement. Okay, so to avoid the SQL injection, we can use the prepared statement instead of statement, and should be used ORM tools as much as possible. We should use instead of writing the native SQL query, we should more focus on use the ORM tools, object relational mapping tools like Hibernate and IBT, uplink. Okay, and escaping inputs by standard functions. So we are escaping the inputs by giving the by standard functions. Password hashing, we can also use the password hashing, and third party authentication also we can use to avoid the SQL injection. Use web application firewall, this is also a very important concept. We can use web application firewall to avoid SQL injection. Always update and use patches. Always update and use the patches. Continuously monitor SQL statement and database. Okay, so we need to continuously monitor the SQL statement and the database to avoid the SQL injection. Question number 20. What is cyclic barrier in Java? Okay, so what is cyclic barrier in Java? The cyclic barrier is a concurrent utility mechanism of synchronization that allows a set of threads to all wait for each other to reach a common barrier point. Okay, so the cyclic barrier. So this question is mostly asking to the experienced persons only, those who have 8+ experience, 7+ experience. So this cyclic barrier is a concurrent utility mechanism of synchronization that allows a set of threads to all wait for each other to reach a common barrier point. So which allows a set of threads to all wait for each other to reach a common barrier point. So the word cyclic is used for its reused purpose. So the word cyclic is used for its reused purpose. That means we can reuse the data here. It means the barrier can be reused. It means the barrier, when a particular barrier point is reached, this barrier can be reused when all waiting threads are released. So when all waiting threads are released, that barrier can be reused. So it preserves count of threads. Okay, so it preserves the count of threads. How to synchronize an array list? Okay, so this is also a very good question. How to generally this question is mostly asking of experience like 3+ experience. So how we can synchronize the array list? So there are two ways to create a synchronized array list. Okay, so generally array lists are non-synchronized. So we can by using these two methods we can synchronize the array list, means thread shape. So collections dot synchronize list method, by using the collections dot synchronize list method. In collections class there is a method called synchronized list, and if we will pass the list in this method, this list will be synchronized. And the second one is using the copy on write array list. Okay, by using the copy on write array list also we can synchronize the list array list. So difference between concurrent hashmap and hashtable. Okay, so hashtable and concurrent hashmap, these two are very similar things. So hashtable locks the entire table. So this is the difference. The hashtable locks the entire table during a write operation, thereby preventing other read operations, read or writes. Okay, so the hashtable locks the entire table during a write operation. So when a write operations are executing by in hashtable, it prevents the all the other reads or write operations. It locks the table. This could be a problem in a highly concurrency environment. On a high concurrency environment, this could be a very problem, because it locks the table. Other any reads write operations should be wait for a long time. But concurrent hashmap allows concurrent reads and limited concurrent writes, which makes it more scalable and often faster in practice. Okay, so but in case of concurrent hashmap, it will not lock the table. It allows concurrent reads. And also limited number of concurrent write operations allowed, which makes it more scalable and often faster in practice. So difference between Hashset and Treet. So what is the difference between Hashset and Treet? So generally Hashset is executed with the help of hash table. So the Hashset is executed with the help of hash table, but Treet is executed with the help of tree data structure. So this is the difference. Hashset is executed with the hash table, and Treet is executed with the help of a tree data structure. Hashset, it does not authorize heterogeneous objects. So Hashset doesn't authorize heterogeneous objects, but in Treet it allows or authorizes a heterogeneous object. Heterogeneous is different type of object. Hashset doesn't allow. It permits a null object, but Treet does not permit the null object. So in case of Hashset, it permits a null object, but Treet does not allow any null object. And in Hashset, to compare two objects, it uses the equal method. So in case of Hashset, to compare the two objects, it uses the equal methods, but in Treet, to compare the two objects, it uses the compare method. Okay, so this is the difference. In Hashset, to compare the two objects, it uses the equal method, but in Treet, it uses the compare method. And the another difference is it doesn't maintain any order. So in Hashset, since the name is Hashset, it doesn't maintain any order, but in Treet it maintains object in a sorted order. Okay, so generally default is ascending order, so it maintains a sorted order. and Hashset doesn't maintain any order. What is the use of @lookup annotation? So @lookup is very useful for injecting a prototype scope bin into a singleton bin. So the scope of bins are like singleton and the prototype. Okay, so to injecting a prototype scope bin into a singleton bin, @lookup annotation is used. So injecting dependency procedurally. Okay. So note @lookup is equivalent of the XML element lookup method. A method annotated with @lookup tells Spring to return an instance of the method's return type when we invoke it. Okay, that means it will return the number of objects at a time, each invocation. What is method hiding? So next question is, what is method hiding? So if a subclass defines a static method with the same signature as the static method in the superclass, in such a case the method of subclass hides the methods of the superclass. Okay. Simply, if a subclass defines a static method with the same signature as this static method in the superclass, okay, so in subclass there is a method defined with the same signature as the superclass. In such case, the method of the subclass hides the methods of the superclass. So this mechanism is known as method hiding, and cause is static method results at compile time. Okay, since the static method results at compile time, so therefore that reason it hides the superclass method, since it is a static method in the subclass. Question number 26, difference between serializable and externalizable interface. So serializable is a marker interface. Serializable is a marker interface that indicates that a class can be serialized. So serial interface indicates that a class can be serialized. That means it converted into a byte stream. Okay, so that means a class can be serialized and deserialized. It converted into byte stream, and again it converted from byte stream to the normal code. Okay, so this means it is can be when class is mentioned with extend with serialized interface, implement serialized interface. That means that class can be serialized and deserialized. In this case, serialization deserialization process is handled by Java runtime. In this case, in case of serialization, the serialization process is handled by the Java runtime environment, and you have limited control over the process. So in this case, we have the limited control over the process in serialization deserialization. But in case of deserialization, in case of externalizable is not a marker interface. Generally, the externalizable is not a marker interface. Marker interface which has no methods. So serializable is a marker interface. In serializable interface, there is no methods present. But in externalizable, it is not a marker interface. That means some methods are there, and it is also used for object serialization, deserialization. Like serializable, externalizable also used for object serialization, deserialization. But the difference is it provides more control and customization over the serialization, deserialization process. So the difference is it provides more control and customization over the serialization, deserialization process. In case of serialization, we have the limited control over the process, but in case of the externalizable, we have the more control and customize over the serialization deserialization process. In case of serialization, it is maintained by the Java runtime, okay, handled by the Java runtime. Therefore we have limited control over the process. But in case of externalizable, the control is upon our hand, so we can it provides the more control and customizable. We can customize also, we can the customization over the serialization deserialization process. Okay, when a class implements externalizable, we must implement the write external and read external methods, which defines how the object is serialized and deserialized. Okay, so in case of externalizable, when a class implements the externalizable, we must implement the write external and read external methods. Override the write external and read external methods according to our requirement, which defines how the object is serialized and deserialized. We can mention our own logic also here. What are the agile principles are there? Okay, or methodologies. What are the other principles or methodologies are there? So the Agile, what is first we know what is Agile. The Agile methodology is a project management. The Agile method is a project management approach that involves breaking the project into phase and emphasize continuous collaboration improvement. So the Agile says we need to continuously, it involves the breaking the project into phases. First, it is breaking the project into phases and emphasizes continuous collaborations and improvement. So the teams follow a cycle of planning. So the Agile team follows a cycle of planning, executing and evaluating. So the teams follow the cycle of planning, executing and evaluating. So Agile terms we can say Scrum and the Kanban. Okay, the Kanban board is there, Scrum meetings are there, happen. So these are the Agile methodology. So the four main manifestos of Agile are, so there are in Agile methodology provides four manifesto and there is 12 principles of methodology. The four main manifestos of Agile are, first one is individuals and interactions over process and tools. So individuals and interactions over process and tools. Working software over comprehensive documentation. Working software over comprehensive documentation. Third one is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And the fourth one is responding to change over following a plan. Okay, so these are the four manifesto we can say. So four manifestos are individuals and interactions over process and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration and contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. So by following a plan we can respond to the client change. Whatever the client any request comes from client to any change or modification, we can by following some plan we can do that changes. Okay, and the 12 principles or methodology we can say our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through the early and continuous delivery of valuable software. Okay, the first methodology says, principle says our highest priority is to satisfy the customer or client through the early and continuous delivery of the valuable software. Okay, second one is welcome changing requirements. Welcome the changing requirements even late in development. So okay, so after the late stage of development also welcome to the changes requirement. If any changes are comes after the like 90% development completed, then also if client if customers given any requirements, we can also welcome to them to changing the requirements. So we cannot say that no, now the already development is completed, we cannot change or modify at that time, at this time. So welcome changing requirements even late in development. Agile process harness changes for the customers competitive advantage. Okay, third methodology says deliver working software frequently. Deliver working software frequently from a couple of weeks to a couple of months with a preference to the shorter time scale. Okay, so deliver working software frequently from a couple of weeks to a couple of months with a preference to the shorter time scale. Okay, so as soon as possible we need to try to deliver the working software. Okay, business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. Okay, so the business people and the developers must working together cooperatively daily throughout the project. Fifth is build projects around motivated individuals. Okay, so the build projects around the motivated individuals, give them the environment and support they need and trust them to get the job done. Okay, so the build projects around the motivated individuals, give them the environment and support they need and trust them to get the job done. Okay. Sixth is the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. Okay, so this is the most important point of Agile methodology, that every day we should do a face-to-face conversation regarding the business requirements and progress. Working software is the primary measure of progress. Okay, so the working software. So our working software is the primary measure of the progress. Agile process promotes sustainable development. Okay, so the Agile process promote the sustainable development. The sponsors, developers and users. The sponsors, developers and users should be able to maintain a constant pace at indefinitely. Okay, so the customer, developers and the users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. 9th point is continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances ability. Okay, so this continuously give the attention to technical excellence and good design, which enhance their ability. Simplicity the art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. Okay, so we need to simplicity maximizing the amount of work. Okay. Point 11 is the best architecture's requirements and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. Okay, the best architectures, requirements and designs emerge from the self-organizing teams. At regular intervals, the teams reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjust its behavior accordingly. Okay, so at regular intervals, the teams reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjust its behavior accordingly. Okay, so these are the 12 methodologies of the Agile manifesto. So question number 28 is difference between choreography and orchestration design pattern. Okay, so this is there is a in previous video we have discussed the microservice design pattern. Okay, so there is a saga design pattern is there. So this choreography and orchestration is the part of the saga design pattern only. Okay, so difference between choreography and orchestration design pattern. So both are under the saga design pattern. Okay, so this is the saga design pattern comes under the database design pattern of the microservice and design pattern. So difference is choreography and orchestration provide different approaches to coordinating communication between microservices. Okay, so the choreography and orchestration, these two provide the different approaches to coordinating communication between the microservices. Choreography is decoupled, that means loosely coupled, but can make debugging and control flow difficult to follow. Okay, so the choreography is decoupled. So the choreography design pattern is decoupled, that is loosely coupled, but can make debugging and control flow difficult to follow. Okay, so in choreography the control flow is very difficult to follow. But in case of orchestration is more observable, debuggable and scalable and centralized, but it is tightly coupled but results in a single point of failure. Okay, so the orchestration design pattern is more observable, debuggable, scalable and centralized, tightly coupled but results in a single point of failure. In choreography it is loosely coupled and in orchestration it is tightly coupled, but the orchestration is more scalable and debuggable than choreography pattern. Both have some advantages and disadvantages, also called as event driven architecture. Because these patterns are also we can call event driven architecture. Okay, what is action framework? Okay, so action framework is a framework for building evolutionary event driven microservice systems based on the principles of domain driven design, command query responsibilities separations and event sourcing. Okay, so this action framework is a framework for building evolutionary event driven microservice systems which is based on the principle of DDD, domain driven design, and command query responsibility, CQRS, command query responsibility separation, CQRS, and event sourcing. So this action framework is used to develop the event driven service system which is on the principle of DDD, CQRS and event sourcing. Action framework provides you with the necessary building blocks to follow these principles. Okay, so this action framework provides you with the necessary building blocks to follow these principles. Question number 30. So this is the last question in this series. So what happened if we'll make a list final. Okay, so if we'll make a list final as list with final keyword, still we can add or remove. So we still, if the list is final, we can also add or remove, but we cannot copy the list into another list. Okay, so in final list we can add or remove the element, but we cannot copy the list to the another list. Okay, so this is the problem in the final list. Okay, so at the end, thank you guys, and this much in this video tutorial, and we'll try to make some more preparing more questions for the next video. And if you think that this session is very helpful to you, so please like and subscribe the video with a friend, and please like and share the video, and please subscribe the channel. Okay, so by which I can make motivate myself and make more and more video for you. Okay, so thank you guys.